We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Who's this Philip K. Dick character?
These are my Philip K. Dick books.
You obviously are a fan.
I enjoy Philip K. Dick's work.
Right.
Believe it or not, actually, you know him. Philip K. Dick is a science fiction author who was writing from the 50s until through the 70s until the very early 80s when he
Passed away.
When he passed away. He was a lunatic and a brilliant lunatic. He is the writer whose work became Blade Runner.
Oh, okay.
Total Recall.
Oh,
Minority Report. A Scanner Darkly. I think that Ben Affleck movie Paycheck, is that what it is?
We've discussed this on one of our podcasts, I think you told me about.
Oh yeah, probably the Total Recall. Mm-hmm. He's written a good amount of stuff, as you can see.
Just some
He was extremely prolific. So here, these are all, not all of, but many of his novels. I believe my collection of his science fiction novels is complete. He also wrote some non-science fiction stuff and a couple of biographies and stuff like that. The guy was remarkable. He was out of this world. So, all right, let's go through them real quick because people, I don't know, we don't really do book shows.
No,
so
but
that's all right. So Philip K. Dick was an author obsessed with the idea of identity, reality, of what is real and what isn't real, of what is a human being, what separates us from other beings, and sort of the idea of the world we see not necessarily being the real world. And that's pretty obvious from things like Blade Runner and Total Recall. Yeah, exactly. Those themes are in pretty much all of his books. This was a huge...
Kind of like not knowing what reality is kind of thing?
Yeah. His books always have this sort of streak of paranoia about them, both an embrace and a fear of technology. A lot of them are about sort of the intrusiveness of advertising and marketing and things of that nature. And they're all like common throughout all his books. I mean, right here, I think there's like 30, 40 novels here and dozens of short stories. And the themes are present in all this stuff.
I mean, I might be naive that I never heard of him per se, but I'm assuming I'm in probably the majority of people that did never heard of him, but it's kind of nuts because a lot of his stuff became popular movies.
Tons of it. Oh, I mean, right now on Amazon.
Why is it that he's not in the same vein as Stephen King, who was like writes these books? You know, everyone knows Stephen King because all of his books turned into movies.
Yeah, he doesn't have in the mainstream a big name. But
is it because he died early?
It could be. I mean, his stuff can be pretty weird. It can be pretty wacky. As the ideas can be pretty weird. That Amazon show, The Man in the High Castle.
Oh, okay,
That's a Philip K. Dick thing. You know, among some science fiction authors, I think he was pretty influential in just sort of his ideas and stuff. We'll run through a bunch of these super fast. We Can Build You, pretty standard Philip K. Dick about sort of weirdness. Ubik, super bizarre one that has to do with the afterlife and advertising, and it's a weird sort of metaphysical comedy. Super bizarre. Though Philip K. Dick's work tends to have a sort of wry sense of humor in it that Black Mirror doesn't necessarily. One of my absolute favorites, an unheralded gem, Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said. Strange ass title, but a lot of his are. This is actually one of my favorites. I think it's one of his most overlooked books. In this book, one day there's this television star who's sort of a reality show star, way ahead of its time, by the way, even that idea.
Right.
And then suddenly the next day, he's a has-been, nobody knows who he is, and he can't figure out, like, what the hell happened. Literally, like, it's like reality just...
Yeah, falls out.
And suddenly he's a nobody anymore. Huh. And so, yeah, it's all that sort of stuff.
When were these written? In the 80s?
No. He died in 81, I think.
Man, so this is way ahead of, like...
Oh, yeah.
A reality star.
Yeah. He was way ahead of his time in tons of stuff, like social media and marketing pushes and stuff like that. He did this one with famed sci-fi author Roger Zelazny, Counterclock World. This one's pretty interesting. This is the idea that time moves in reverse, and so libraries sort of eradicate books rather than collect books. They eradicate books. People say goodbye rather than hello. People, the dead come back to life.
That's real weird.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. It's a bizarre.
So it's like an alternate universe idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lies Incorporated, based in part on a book that he didn't completely finish that became a novella. This one's kind of an odd and difficult one because it wasn't finished to his liking. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This became Blade Runner.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
So that is the book that became Blade Runner, and it's terrific. Just as the movie's terrific, the book is terrific. The book is actually quite different. The Divine Invasion, a really curious one. He got into this period for a little while. He actually had a mental snap where he was legit mental, and he did several books that he was sort of exploring the idea of God and what it was. And in this book, The Divine Invasion, the sort of concept is, what if God is like a real physical being and he's been exiled to some distant planet, and he's gonna have a second coming? Like, what happens then?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, bizarre ideas. Valis, this is probably one of his craziest, if not his craziest work. When he had his mental snap, he actually thought he was struck by a pink laser from the heavens. He began to think that he was living both in the real world and during the time of the Holy Roman Empire at the same time. This is what he actually believed in real life.
Right.
And so this book is sort of...
That was written during that time.
Yeah, and it's kind of about that. Like, the character who isn't him but is really him is going through all that same stuff.
Wow, jeez.
Totally bizarre. Dr. Blood Money, great post-apocalyptic book. It's after a nuclear holocaust. It's sort of like Mad Max. Super bizarre, weird mutant characters and stuff like that. Huh. A Maze of Death. The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. This is another heavily religious focused book.
Stigmata.
Obviously. Really bizarre and disorienting to read. A Crack in Space. This is a good one. A repairman discovers that a hole in a faulty GIF scuttler leads to a parallel world. And then a bunch of other crazy stuff.
That seemed, I think Futurama did a sort of...
Probably. It wouldn't surprise me if it came from that. The Man in the High Castle, which Amazon has turned into a TV series. This book is about an alternate world where Japan and Germany won World War II, and they've split the United States in half, to hold that. But there's this secret underground where people have, in TV it's a videotape, in here it's a book. And this book is about America winning. The book in the alternate reality, the book is a book from our reality about what really happened.
That's pretty funny.
And so this sort of revolution is building about this idea of maybe there's this alternate world where the Allies won the war. So it's...
That alone is amazing.
It's a super... his concepts are super strange.
Yeah.
A Scanner Darkly, which was made into a movie with Robert Downey Jr. and a bunch of other people. And this book is a book about drug addiction and so on. Time Out of Joint, one of my favorites from him. Okay, so the year is 1998, but the main character doesn't know that. He thinks it's 1959. He thinks he served in World War II and that he lives in a quiet little sleepy community, but it turns out that that's not actually the case. It's totally Twilight Zone kind of thing. Eye in the Sky, again, very similar. The World Jones Made, again, similar themes. Now Wait for Last Year. One of his somewhat more overlooked ones, The Man Who Japed. This is one I think that it is quite overlooked. This to me reminded me a lot of Orwell's 1984.
Oh, okay.
This is it's a world that survived the nuclear holocaust, and now people are being monitored at all times. And if you have the wrong thoughts, you're in trouble.
Oh.
The Cosmic Puppets. Now you mentioned Stephen King before. This to me, when I read it, I was like, "This is a Stephen King book."
Huh.
It's this is a book where it's like God to control reality exists. And people just don't sort of realize it, but this
Greek god,
this person sort of discovers it. I can't pronounce it. The simulacra or whatever about androids and so on. The Transmigration of Timothy Archer. This was written during his super crazy period, and it's a super crazy book. The Zap Gun.
The Zap Gun.
Another one of his somewhat more obscure ones. Galactic Pot Healer. A pot healer is someone who repairs ceramics. Yeah, it's strange. All these concepts are difficult to explain sometimes because they're strange. Martian Time Slip. This was actually one of our awesome Patreon people, Alex, is a fan of this book, and this is why we're doing this video. So here we go, Galactic Pot Healer,
Martian Time
Slip. The Game Players of Titan, which is about a card player, and also about weird-ass shit. The Clans of Alpha Moon, Confessions of a Crap Artist, also, I believe, card player, Radio Free Album Myth. Then we've got our friends from Frolics 8, Solar Lottery, Vulcan's Hammer, Selected Literary and Philosophical Writings by Philip K. Dick. Then you've got short story collections, The Minority Report, which you guys all know, and then tons of other stories. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. That's Total Recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story that became Total Recall, plus tons of other stories.
Now, did you read that one?
Yes.
So, how does it hold up movie? Like, does the movie follow it pretty good?
No, they're quite different.
Oh, okay.
The concepts are the same, but they're quite different.
Okay.
Just like Blade Runner and Duandroid's Dream of Electric Sheep. Completely different.
Huh.
Basic concepts are the same, but completely different. Paycheck, which I believe became the Ben Affleck movie. Mm-hmm. Then The Eyes of Sybil, and again, all these are short story collections. He did some like standard straight up fiction that is not science fiction. Humpty Dumpty in Oakland was one of them.
Did you?
I have not read that one. I haven't read. It was one of the few that I haven't. And Voices from the Street. He did a few others that are really difficult to find. The Man Who Had Perfect Teeth was one of them, and a few others. This is another short story collection. A couple of biographies. I Am Alive and You're Dead: A Journey into the Mind of Philip K. Dick, and Divine Invasions: A Life of Philip K. Dick. I prefer Divine Invasions. And he's a fascinating guy. He was barely successful at all throughout his career, even with all these books.
That's crazy.
He barely made any money. He was barely successful. I mean, he sold literally. There's a couple of hundred stories and all these books. He barely made it. He could barely make ends meet. He was a little nuts and went further nuts as time went on. He had these weird obsessions, and so in his own time, he was not very well known. He has now become sort of a legend in science fiction circles. The guy was incredible, and he's one of my favorite authors. Lots of stuff like that. So yeah, anyway, there you go. There's my Philip K. Dick books. Love this guy. I love his work.
I learned something new today.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.